When I was a college freshman at Cornell, studying at Cornell University back in the late 70s, I took an introductory course in Western civilization. But at that time, I was not exposed to Western civilization as it is presented by the textbook I'm discussing today. The title of this textbook is History of the World in Christian Perspective. It's the third edition, copyright Pensacola Christian College, 1995. That subtitle in Christian Perspective is essentially the same as saying from a biblical perspective. Unlike secular history texts, this textbook starts with the premise that biblical accounts of past events should be treated as an accurate presentation of human history. To that end, this textbook boldly teaches, starting with the opening chapters of the book of Genesis, whereas a secular textbook would typically begin with a brief description of hunter-gatherer communities that eventually evolve into the ancient advanced civilizations that we find in Mesopotamia and Egypt. In this text, major biblical figures such as Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are boldly recognized as historical figures. In secular texts, Israel is mentioned, but usually only because of Israel's role in the development of monotheism. Even secular texts will quote Old Testament scriptures and mention Jewish prophets by name when discussing Israel's contribution to Western religious thought. But the scriptures themselves are generally seen by secular textbooks as just elaborate storytelling or even myths borrowed from other cultures and nations. Now, this history of the world in Christian perspective starts with the earliest civilizations, and it goes through basically Western history, Western civilization, right up until the time of modern history, ending up with a discussion of the Clinton administration. So it's between 5,000 and 6,000 years of human history, recorded history. The text is, frankly, it was never designed to be used as an apologetic for the Christian faith. The writers and contributors assume, or that those reading and studying this particular book already accept the Bible as a reliable account of history. And they focus on, as they're going through the various chapters of Western civilization, they focus on how our Judeo-Christian tradition influenced that history. For example, when they talk about the Reformation in Europe, they give a very detailed and straightforward history of those reformers, such as Martin Luther, John Calvin, Huss, and others. And they avoid just discussing the politics and the conflict between different religious traditions, like the conflict between Catholicism and Protestantism, and they focus on these men as believers in Yeshua, the Messiah. Particularly when discussing Luther, they mentioned that it was the scriptures that made the difference in Luther's transformation in the way that he looked at salvation. They quote an extremely important verse from Scripture that comes from the book of Romans, where Luther is reading, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation, to everyone that believeth. For therein is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith." So this text really, it not only shows what these men did, but why they did it, and how the scriptures themselves influenced all of their actions. I recommend it even to people who don't necessarily believe the scriptures, as a way of understanding how Christian faith affected Western civilization. Thank you.